We are live. Hello, Facebook. Hello, Chris. Hello, Dan. Hope we're doing well, pal. Are we all doing? We okay?
Yeah, all good, mate.
Sound, yeah.
So we're going for an unpopular opinion on one of Chris's weekly shows. This, however, with the weekly show comes a bit of a caveat. This week we don't know what the unpopular opinion is. So batten down the hatches. It is past the threshold of kid time. So I hope your kids are in bed for this. Come on then, Chris. Hit us with it. What is this unpopular opinion?
Right. Well, I kind of give you a little hint that it's to do with the youth project at City.
Yeah.
For anyone watching who hasn't been paying attention the last few months, the youth project at City has been a topic we've been discussing at quite length. One side of the argument you've got that it's a successful business plan. You know, we get the world's best, youngest, most promising talents, either develop them ourselves or loan them out and then sell them for a profit. And then there's the other side of it where, you know, myself and City Dave particularly both think it doesn't work. Players aren't getting the opportunity, and we're losing money. Because I came up with another good analogy before. It's my wife's birthday in October on Halloween. So if we think about it, it's got 3 months. I know she loves chicken, so I decided I'm going to do a proper, really good chicken meal from scratch. And I decide I'm not just going to go to Morrison's and get frozen fillets or a Kiev.
Where are you going with this?
Oh, no, bear with me. Go on the journey. So I source locally the best farms that produce the best grade A chickens, right? And I get from them one fertilised egg from 15 different farms. So I've got 15 fertilised chicken eggs. Yeah?
Dan, I think he's lost the plot.
No.
I think he's gone.
How do you go from Halloween to talking about eggs?
I've only got room at home to be able to raise 6 of these eggs myself. So the other 9, I'm going to send out to other farms. Schools will do them as projects from hatching and all that. So they develop the eggs away. I develop these at home. A week before a birthday, I get the update. All the chickens are ready. Some of them, they're not up to standard and not good enough. And some people say, well, I'll take it, don't worry, and they'll give me a couple of quid. Some of the schools decide they want to keep it as a pet and a further project. They can't offer me money for it, but because I'm not going to use it, I'll let them have it for nothing. And out of the ones I've got, there's probably only one that's I look at and think, yeah, I'm going to tuck into that. So the other 5 I sell for peanut. I'm like, it's a waste to me. So I sell these chickens. I've made a little bit of money. And then I've got my prize chicken ready for the big day. And when it comes to it, I look at it and think, if I kill this now, pluck it, prep it, cook it up, it might not quite be as good as I'm expecting. And so at the end of the day, I just leave it there. And I decide, right, me and the missus are going to Nando's. So you spend 30 quid on 2 chicken fillets, portion of chips, peas, and sauce out the bottle. She can't stand it because she don't like spicy food, so she's not happy. And I'm like, bloody hell, I'm now out of pocket because I've wasted a fortune on something that I could have done at home. And to me, that is what City's youth project is. They're spending money on things. Look at Mangala, yeah? We have defenders. We've had defenders that we've bought, we've developed. Some have gone on loan, some have stayed at the club. We've developed them. They weren't given the chance. Instead, we've spent a fortune on Mangala, and he was crap. And that is my chicken analogy. So, as a background, that's where we're up to, yeah?
I would just like to add, we are never, ever doing this again.
How
We
about
need
you
to go
got
to the topic
tears?
of future. You completely and utterly lost me, mate. You lost me. You can keep one.
All I got from that is that you planned on hanging Phil Foden.
No, Phil Foden's going to be the main product of the question, though.
So you're going to give Phil Foden a good plucking and have him.
Gonna pluck a Foden.
I want to know from either of you, do you think Phil Foden is going to be used as a scapegoat for City's Youth Academy and the whole youth project? Because to me, you look at the players since the takeover, the players that have come through our youth academy, and have either not lived up to the potential or have escaped City. So Sancho's the big one who's gone and made it big, but you've got players like Kieran Trippier. At a push, you could possibly even argue like to Ben Mee, who, you know, he's played hundreds of games now in the Premier League for Burnley. All the, you know, these players that I'm not saying they'd have been first team world class players at City, but if Kieran Trippier, for instance, he's a right back. I'm sure he was selected in the Champions League squad. I don't know whether he played in the Champions League final for Tottenham, but I know he was in the squad. So you've got a player of that calibre, and yet look how much money we've spent on right-backs over the years. In 5-10 years' time, when people look back at this, are they just going to say, well, look, our youth project does work, it's great, we're making money, and look at Phil Foden?
Can I use your analogy back at you? And I'm kind of tuning into where you're at now, so I'm going to use your chicken analogy right back at you. So the way I see it, City has got, you have to bear with me here, Dan, because I'm going to start calling chicken buckers again. So City's got
Bernard Matthews.
City have got a squad of 22 players.
Okay.
22 players. Only 11 can play at any one time. Right? So our youth academy is a business, and it's generated a lot of money for us, and it's generated some really good players that can now fit into our squad, could have fitted into our squad, as in the Sanchos and the likes of the Trippiers of the world. And we're going to miss out again on the likes of the Sanchos, the Trippiers, other players like that in the future. It just so happens that Phil Foden fell at the right time. So out of those 9 chickens that you're going to buy, the one that you're going to keep and have just so happens to have been right at the right time that you wanted to buy it and eat it. However, the other 9 just weren't right for you at that particular time, so obviously you had to get rid of them. So what I'm saying is, when Sancho left, he left because he wasn't getting game time and he wasn't promised game time, and there was better players in that 22 than him to play. Yeah? Trippier, another good example. There was better players in the City 22 than him at that time, so he had to move on. Phil Foden, he was coming through the ranks. Silva was leaving. Perfect timing for Phil Foden to come through the ranks at that time and be the next best thing. And it just so happens, obviously, Pep looked at him, saw his attitude, saw his commitment, saw he was a City fan, saw everything that came with it, and encouraged him more, potentially more than the Sanchos or the Trippiers, because he probably saw more from him in training than he did the others. So for me, go on.
I think you touched on a point there, I think, that makes the difference with Foden. The fact that he is a City fan. He's been a City fan all his life. He's been there all his life. You know, I mean, he was playing for the academy, you know, at like the age of 10, 11 years old, whereas other players were coming in from other clubs, you know, at sort of 15, 16. The fact that he supports City, it's like he's less inclined to give up on his dream of playing for City. He's less inclined, you know, he's like, okay, I'll be more patient than somebody who's like, no, I'm ready now. And again, I mean, Jadon Sancho, they're saying there was better players at City at the time, but he went to Dortmund and was pretty much straight away in there first.
For fuck's sake.
Can everyone else see that? Can everyone else see that? Have I taken too many aspirins today?
So we've got chickens.
Oh God! Put it back on! Put it back on!
It's got to be an MIB first, isn't it? Chickens and pigs all in the same podcast.
I've just been listening, and I just have. I've come on to defend the academy.
I knew he would.
That's
I
all
knew
right.
he would.
You defend the academy,
I knew he'd
Dan.
be there.
Dan, do you see the academy as there to back up squad with players, or do you see the academy to make money for the club? Oh, he's gone. Who's not paid his meter?
There you go.
What a face, though.
Even Zoom has agreed that he shouldn't be allowed to defend the academy. I mean, it's just, if you think about like everything with the financial fair play as well, though, at the minute, I mean, yes, the academy has made money on the players, but when you offset the money we've spent, it's not a viable. You can't say, "Oh, it's making us money," because it's peanuts.
Yeah, it might be, but it ain't no. It's you're buying a youth player for $1 million, and if you're selling him for 7, 8, that's a profit still. Still profit, whichever way you look at it. Or you're buying this player for $1 million, and then he turns into Phil Foden or Eric Garcia, and we're playing him. He's paid for himself. That's how I think about it. Now, you're going to have players that leave, and you think, fucking hell, he's turned into a decent player. But how many players have come through and done nothing? I bet that outweighs the ones who's done good. Surely.
But that's part of my point. It's like they aren't getting that opportunity. If you're buying a player who you think, well, he's got plenty of potential, but then he's on loan at bloody Celtic or Girona or whatever. I mean, look at John Guidetti.
Yeah.
No matter where John Guidetti has gone in Europe, he's scored goals. He's never had the chance over here.
Yeah, but he scored goals at like Celta Vigo, like 6 a season.
Yeah,
I
which is
reckon
fair
I'd
enough.
score 5.
He was here when we went and signed Bonnie. So why did we waste all that money on Bonnie?
Because Bonnie at the time was arguably the most informed striker.
Bonnie at the time when he came in, he was shit hot, wasn't he? Because he
at Swansea, he was the only striker at Swansea, and he was the target man.
But it's the same thing, right? We signed Bonnie, it didn't work out. If we played Guidetti, it didn't work out. Everybody would be saying, "Well, why haven't we signed somebody?"
Yeah,
there's no winning with him. I just think we've got to get it out of our head. We need to play youth. We need to play youth.
I agree.
It just right. I can't remember who it was. Who's that? It was like something to do with at Chelsea. Is it Ray
Wilkins?
Yeah. He said if you get one John Terry within 10 years of your academy's a success. So we've done that. We've got Phil Foden is our John Terry. So in my eyes, this Sheikh Mansour era has already completed its youth academy.
But that's it. That to me, that says it all. I mean, that's one player who loves the club. He's a local lad. I mean, because I said to you before, you know, on the messenger, Tom, I'd love to get Jim Whitley's view on this, because when he was in the academy, there wasn't all this, right, we're going buying players all over. They were all local lads. And I mean, there's quite a few of those local lads that, you know, even when we were in the Premier League, were coming through. You had the likes of Mika Richards, Nader Manua. We had, you know, Stephen. They were all from our academy. They all grew up from our academy. Sean Wright Phillips. And it just seems now that with all the money that we've got, it's just quicker and easier to buy the quick fix. And if it doesn't work, well, not to worry. We'll get rid for a big loss and buy someone else. And that's my point. I'm not saying, oh, we've got a youth system, we have to start using youth. Because no, at the end of the day, if they're not good enough, they're not good enough. But I don't want us. At the end of the day, how can we say it's a massive success when we've got one player? I mean, Garcia, yes, he started games now, but there's big talk. You know, he might be lured away to Barcelona, which is a possibility. I hope it doesn't happen. But I mean, if you look at the Arsenal match, we had 16 shots, only 1 on target. And that's not a success. That's not good enough. So if you've got 16 players in your academy and only 1 bloody make it, well, that's all right. But that's only good if you haven't then bought players in your first team. If you buy players for the first team and they make it, then no, you don't need the academy. But look at the amount of players that we've bought over the years that have been useless. Mangala, Fernando, Joe, Javi Garcia. You know, they all came and they all... I mean, it doesn't matter even what the reason for him not making it. I mean, Paul Negredo, he was all right. He just couldn't settle.
Chris, can I ask you your opinion?
If you're brave enough.
Do you think our academy... Right, I'll ask you straight answer. What do you think our academy is there for? What do you think football academies are there for in general?
To me, football academy should be about bringing players through to your club, your way of thinking. I mean...
Right, fine. Yeah, fine. Fantastic. Yeah, right, let's stop it there for a minute. if they're there to come through to our club, brilliant. If City sign 20 prospects, 10 prospects a season at between 500 grand and 5 million as gambles, because they might be the next best thing, how many of those 10 do you expect to feature the first team?
Obviously, I'm presuming they're all sort of different positions. You're not going to buy 10 players all in one position. Cause,
yeah, so I'm going to use it. Forgive me, my academy knowledge isn't very great, so I'm probably not the best person to do this. Let's say the last 10 academy players that we signed randomly. So
yeah,
Jan Kuto, all the rest of it. So if we sign, say for example, we signed the last 10 players for $1 million each. That's 10 million quid, right? Do you expect any of those 10 to be good enough in the next year or two, being City starting 22 or 22 squad?
Personally,
yeah,
I think that any academy player that is bought by the club, obviously, I'm not talking about like 16-year-olds. Like you said, Jan Kuto, he's 18 years old. If he doesn't make a first-team appearance at City, I don't see the point in even buying him. Because I'll tell you something as well.
Jim Whitley's going to come on and have a chat to us about this.
I'm just going to point out, like, to me, playing for the academy, I mean, it's slightly different nowadays, obviously, because like we've got the academy stadium, so you've got 3,000 or 4,000 fans at a game. But playing for the academy, you look at some of the games that they're playing. There's a handful of fans.
You're not really answering the question, Chris. Sorry, mate. You kind. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but you kind of scared.
No, yeah, that's fine. I honestly think if you're buying an academy player, whether you think he's the next big thing, I think he should at least have one appearance for the first team in a game. It doesn't matter whether it's League Cup, FA Cup, or League.
If those 10 players that we've bought for £1 million each aren't good enough within 18 months, 2 years, but are good enough for another Premier League club, a Championship club, and we can sell them between 5 and 10 million quid, that's a potential between 50 million and 100 million pound profit City could make within like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so that's potential.
I see personally that the academy is a business, and a little bit like Dan likes a gamble. It's a bit of a gamble as well. We're buying the cream of the crop of the talent to see, actually, do you know what? Come to City. If you've got it, you've got it. If you ain't, you ain't. But we'll sell you to somewhere else. But you'll have the best fucking training that anywhere else in the world. You come to City, try your hardest. And I think people need to change the mindset of we need to play the youth. We need to play. I remember my dad being really proud of City being the only team to win the FA Cup with all English players. That's gone now. City are not going to win the FA Cup with all English players ever again. We're not going to win.
I don't think any team will.
All youth players. We kind of, if there were any of those 10 players that come in and they're not good enough, we sell them, make a profit, and go for the next batch.
I totally agree with that, Tom. I totally agree with that. However, what City are doing though, they're buying 10 youth players, thinking these could be the next big thing. You know, like Jan Kuto, for example. But then we'll then spend, instead of it being 500,000 to 5 million, we'll then spend 30, 40, 50 million on a first-team player that might be in his early 20s. And that's another gamble. Like that is my problem. Like I said, Mangala was the big one. We had young players that could have done it. I mean, do you think of the job that Mangala has done at City? A couple of crap appearances, one good game, and the rest on the bench. We could have saved a fortune.
Who were the defenders when Mangala was playing for us? Forget what season did Mangala leave? Let me just have a double check. What season did he leave?
2 seasons ago.
I thought it was last season he went, didn't he? Was it last season?
It's got to be the season before. He was on loan at Valencia for a bit, wasn't he? But
Everton as well.
I'm only jumping on quick because, but I do get what you're saying, Chris. But you think now, like Tom was saying, so Eric Garcia's prime example now. We signed him for 3 million, right? If he signs another 5 years and he plays at a decent level for 5 years, we're going to look back and go, 3 million was nothing. Bargain, right? If he signs a 2-year deal and Barcelona buy him for 25 million, even 10 million, and then we sign another 3 Eric Garcia's for 3 million, And like, you got to think, anything them youth players make, if that just goes back into buying other cheap youth players, it's like free money. It's like free players. But you just can't. But another thing, we're sending these players out on loan to like Girona, New York City, our clubs. Now, if Girona get promoted, their promotion money still goes to the City Football Group. It still comes back to us in the long run. So us buying like Douglas Luiz and him getting, and who were the other lad we sent on loan? Pablo Maffeo, getting Girona promoted to La Liga, that is money to us in the long run. We'll get a percentage of that money. Do you get what I mean? That's another factor we've got to think about with this when we're doing it to clubs who we own. Yeah,
I get that. Like I said, it's just, you see how much we're spending on first team players that we're then losing money on, like a massive amount of money that we are spending on players. That's where it just seems like the whole business, that everything that Tom was saying about, you get 10 players, one might make it, you're making profits on the others. It just seems like all that's for nothing. If then you're spending a massive amount on players that are, said to be proven, but not really.
Are we not offsetting buying these players with the money we're making through the academy? Can I just give you an example here? I'm on Wikipedia. God bless Wikipedia. So I've gone for 2018 randomly because Mangala left in 2019. So I thought I'll look at the season before that to see what competition he had up against, right? And I'm looking at the first team squad, and the first team squad for the defending side of things: Kyle Walker, Danilo, Company, Stones. Paul was in there, Mangala, obviously, Mendy. So there's no Philip Sander, is he defensive midfield?
Philip Sander.
Felipe Sander, yeah.
So for me, there's no youth academy there. No one youth academy coming in. City signed in that season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players. Right, so I'm going to read these names out to you. Tell me how many you know. Adrian Benabi, Ben Knight, Riyad Mahrez, Claudio Gomez, Philip Sandler, Daniel Arzini, Jordan Braff, Koki Katiatia, Antti Palverian, Gavin Benzuvu. We signed players in that season for £63.7 million. Right? How many do you recognise there? 5?
And I recognise 5, and I know Mahrez was the big chunk of that 60-odd million.
You recognise 5 out of the 10 players we've signed.
Yeah.
The transfers out for that season, okay, there's a lot. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll read some of the names. These are the players that left the club: Angelino, Ashley Smith-Brown, Sordon Diallo, Xavier Del Rusum, Bobby Duncan, D'Amico Duani, Howard Essien, Pablo Maffei, Davine Na, Will Pitching, Eric Samito, Powell, Socko, Yaya Torre, Marshall Wood. The list goes on. Angus Wood. We sold all these players: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, excuse me, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 players. We sold 34 players. We made £70 million. Now, well over 60% of these were undisclosed, so the money's not on top of that £70 million.
Yeah, and the money's not on
What I'm saying is, out of these players that we've shipped out of the club, we've been able to buy the first team talent of Mahrez, Jordan Braff, and the rest of them are very much hit and miss, aren't they? So Sandler, Arzini. So Braff and Mahrez. So what I'm saying is we made £10 million profit because we've had our academy from the side that year. That's kind of, I know I'm going along around the roundabout way of doing this.
No, that's you like you said, and that's the 1 year. But I think that was the 1 year that we only bought one player for the first team, because I mean Jaden Braff, he hasn't made a first team appearance yet.
Yeah, Mahrez.
We literally just bought Mahrez. That was it.
Yeah.
But that Arzini was from Melbourne City as well, so really we bought a player for ourselves.
For ourselves.
I'm going to just say I'm going to have to go, lads. I've only jumped on quick. Keep up the good work. I'll carry on watching now.
Cheers, pal.
Take care, mate.
See you later, boss.
So it's a real tough one, this, because you will get your diehards like you and your Dave that want to see the youth coming in. And don't get me wrong, I'd love a team of thugs, but I'd also like to win the quadruple again next season. And if we promoted all our academy, we wouldn't do that.
See, I'm kind of halfway between the two. I know I come across very much of it. We should be using youth, but I'm more we shouldn't be wasting the money that we're making. That is my problem. I mean, I've always said it about Mahrez. We bought Mahrez in that season that you mentioned. The season before was our Centurion season. We didn't need an attacking midfield. We didn't need that position. It was a wasted. To me, it's £63 million wasted. Why did we need him?
Who was that?
When we bought Mahrez.
Yeah.
I've always said that. What a waste of a. We knew Company was going to be going that season, so we knew in the next 12 months we need a central defender. We were always of the impression that Fernandinho needed a backup, but we delayed and had to wait another 12 months for Rodri to come in. And instead, we bought a player in a position that we didn't really need to strengthen. We had Sane, we had Silva, Sterling.
I disagree with you. Sane's gone out injured all this season. We've needed a winger.
That's this season, not last season though. Look at what Mahrez did last season. His first season at the club. That was the point I was making. We didn't need him last.
Because you don't like Mahrez though. I like Mahrez.
It was just that's the example because the season that you mentioned. Like I said, you go back. There's plenty of other seasons. I mean, we bought Joe for however many millions that was. We had players like John Guidetti in the squad who scored goals. Well, Joe was scoring goals in Russia or wherever it was we bought him from. So why did we waste money on him when we had a player who was already scoring goals closer to home? It's like both of them would have been a risk. John Guidetti's not played in the Premier League. Can he step up? We don't know. Joe. He's scoring goals in Russia. I mean, odd where it was. That's a risk. Is he gonna score goals? It turned out it wasn't.
Jim, you
Jim.
Oh, where am I?
That's a talent, that is.
Don't make me turn my computer out.
Stiff neck doing that.
There we go.
How are we doing, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good to see it. Right, we need your voice of wisdom. Jim Whitley, welcome to the show, mate. Always good to see you, pal. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm not too bad. Before you start, I cut myself shaving, by the way.
Oh, what have you done?
Oh,
mate, shaving, new razor, and mate, I've never cut myself in. I don't know how many years I've been shaving. I tried a new razor about a week in, and I just went. Honestly, it's my massive chunk, man. It's massive, but anyway.
You've been down the gym, looking good, pal, in your underarm.
Listen, I was just doing the coaching. That's why I said give me 5. I was just coming back, so. Yes,
we need once a week. We do an unpopular opinion. So do you know what?
Yes.
To get the viewpoint of an ex-Blue, an ex-player, and a City fan, this is valid for us, right? So we're talking about the academy and youth players. Yeah. So where we stand at the moment is, I'm not going to use Chris's analogy because Chris will keep you talking for 5 minutes. So I see the academy as a business. It's there's the first team 22. And there's the academy. If we get a Phil Foden in a generation, I think that's really lucky. But I see the academy as the off chance of bringing in 1 or 2 cut diamonds with a chance for them to come into our 22. But I see that more as a massive money maker for the club for us to be able to afford the big money signings. Now, Chris and certain other Blues have the opinion of, no, we need to be playing. Tell me if I'm wrong, Chris. We need to be playing more youth players. There's been plenty of analogies in the past where City have went out. And what was the one you used a minute ago? You mentioned we bought Joe when we had was it
John Guidetti?
Yeah. And it's a real tough one. This, and I just wanted to see where, as a former pro who's been through the academy, how do you see it?
Well, I'm not a massive fan of the academy, to be honest with you.
Go on, tell us what you think.
It was different. It was different. Me coming through. When I went to the academy, it's changed a lot. But up until 16, I was only going in on a Thursday training with Colin Bell. I used to get the train from Wrexham up and train with Colin Bell on a Thursday, and that was it basically. I then then you had your YTS from 16 to 18, where you cleaned the first team's boots. You had the chance to meet the first team all the time, looking after their boots. And then there was the chance of playing A and B team games and eventually playing reserve games with other first teamers who were trying to get back fit. And it was a great way of integrating with first teamers before actually going into the first team. And a lot of the first teamers could see youngsters coming through and know who the good ones and who went. So when you go to academies now and the youngsters coming through, they're almost treated like royalty for me.
Right.
They've not actually done anything as yet.
I'm assuming they're not cleaning boots anymore then?
No, absolutely no chance. No, those days are gone. And, you know, there's no reserves anymore. It's only up until the under 23s. And so that integration with some of the first teams isn't quite there for me. But looking at the kids coming through today, listen, the facilities are magnificent at Manchester City, absolutely magnificent. But my son's at Blackpool and they played Manchester City, and the lads were there walking around in flip-flops and sliders, as they call them, and not even carrying their own boots. And it was like, man, what happened to the kid just dragging their boots along to go and play at a game? And obviously it's gone to the next level. And part of me feels that sometimes it's taking the flair away from youngsters coming through. We'd go into a park and practice overhead kicks or try little skills, whereas now you're regimented into doing the passing, the pep way at the moment, the passing move, and that might not get you into a League One or League Two side. It's a very, very tricky situation. There's a lot of money being put into the academy. And they need to get a lot of players out of it at the other end. They didn't have this kind of academy when I came through, and there's a lot of kids that played in the first team, quite a lot of kids that played in the first team when I was coming through. And so I have mixed feelings on the academy. I've got friends who've got 5 and 6 year olds that are signed for Manchester City, and I find it quite incredible. But it's the way it's going, and there's a lot of money being put in. Yeah, they've signed. Yeah, he's incredible, absolutely incredible. And not even at 5 and 6, they have different levels. They have an elite squad at 6 years old. There's an intermediate, and I can't remember what the first one they call it now. But even at that level, you're in different tiers, and it's like, wow, you know, let the kids be kids, let them play with the ball, and let them learn the basics first. But it's very, very difficult for me watching that through. The proof will be in the pudding in another, 10, 15 years' time as to how many youngsters have actually come through the academy.
Because City, what part of City's sales pitch to British kids and kids from overseas is, come and have a couple of years at our world-class facility, you will be a better player for it. For when if you do come through the ranks, fantastic, but for when we sell you, you will be. It's like going to the best college or the best university. It's kind of like you have the best of the best, so you'll have a fantastic future after it. Yeah,
and do you know what? With City, there's schooling as well to go with it. So some of the kids that join at 11 years old get put through a schooling, and the schooling is fantastic. So even at 16, if that doesn't work, then you've got hopefully a good bit of education behind you. So that's the plus side of that. And yes, the facility is incredible. And some people might even, without playing in the first team, might slip out of the game and end up quite well off. But the beauty of going into football is, well, it wasn't for me in particular. It wasn't really about the money. It was about just playing football, showing your skills on a pitch. That was the buzz of the crowd, whereas a lot is money driven now, and so if you are money driven, you could leave Manchester City with quite a good pot behind you and never ever play first team football and actually come out of the game and go into something else. But the amount they're investing into the kids, just with schooling alone, private school, that will cost a fortune for the kids coming through. They'll need to get players the other end and bring them through. But as Manchester City are now going for trophies year in, year out now, the strive for success is that they always have to buy players. They need to stay at this top level for Champions League, for the Premiership, for the FA Cup. And sometimes you won't wait for the kids. You'll end up buying players in, and the kids get bypassed and they get moved on to other clubs. You know, they've got a better chance of probably getting to another club from Manchester City, but to actually play is very, very difficult now, I feel.
Chris, from what Jim said there, from what I said, if you were going to turn around and you had the opportunity to sit down as City's head of academy and say, listen, from a fan's point of view, how would you word it to them to get them on your page of, you know, giving more players a chance in the first team?
Well, I've just been thinking now, and
we want to win. I want to win 4 trophies again next year. And I don't want to use the phrase, you don't win anything with kids, because somebody said that a long time ago and they saw egg on the face. But the reality is we need a certain quality of player to win these trophies. And if the academy's not got it, they've not got it. Goodbye, good luck.
Yeah, well, I mean, just sitting there and listening to, I've kind of got it in a better sort of vision in my head now. Of best way of putting it to you. Have you ever been to like a restaurant that's got a separate bar area?
Yes.
You know what I mean? You know, when you, right, so you've got a proper restaurant, it's fancy food, really good stuff, and that's what people go there for. But it does have a separate bar as well where people can meet, wait around. The bar could be making money, but for whatever reason, the restaurant itself is losing money, and that's where your main profits are supposed to be. And if that's losing money, eventually, the whole business plan isn't working. It's not a restaurant. And to me, that's what City is at the minute. The academy might be making a bit of money, but we're losing so much with our first team players that we're spending a fortune on and then making a fraction back on. And that's where, to me, that's why I don't see the point. And I'm like, if that's what you're going to do, then start using the youth. Like I said, Mangala was a key example for me. We spent so much money on Eloquent Mangala when we had young, promising centre-backs. I mean, Adarabio was one. Just give them the chance and save yourself the money. If you're going to make that gamble that doesn't pay off, that there is a flaw somewhere in the system, you may as well use the youth. I'm not saying we have to use youth and let's stick to doing that because, you know, for one reason or another, injuries or just technical ability, passion, not every person who goes through the academy will make it. And they won't. It's not just at City. Some of those players will never make it anywhere. You know, they're never going to be known in the footballing world. But I honestly just think that, I mean, Jim, the question I set at the start was, in 5-10 years' time, do we think Phil Foden is going to be a scapegoat for the academy project? Because he's made it, but he's a City fan, and you know, it's easy for him to say, "Yeah, I'll wait for my chance." And it's easy. I mean, a City fan is going to put more passion and effort into playing for City than he would if he was, say, going playing for Chelsea. It's the same with Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard was amazing for Liverpool. If he'd have gone to Juventus or somewhere else, he'd have done a good job, but he wouldn't have been on the same level because he's a Liverpool fan. And you've just got that instant, I'm going to do the best for my club. And I think that's what we've got with Foden, which is special.
You think since the academies, since 2008, since the money came in and the academy project really started being built, so let's say it's been 10 years, we've had how many players through from the academy? Phil Foden's the major one, and he's only just breaking through now, isn't he? And then you look at players we could have potentially had, the Trippiers and the Sanchos of the world. How many players can you think of in that 10 years where you think to yourself they could be in our team now? You're in Sancho.
We'll have to do some research then.
I honestly can't think of many. I can't think of many apart from Sancho where we've lost and we think, Christ, we've lost out a lot of money there. Which for 10 years' time, which tells me, actually, you know what? The academy is doing its job and it's a cash factory.
Kasper Schmeichel, Daniel Sturridge.
Daniel Sturridge.
I mean, Kasper Schmeichel's a Premier League winner. Daniel Sturridge has won. Was it the Champions League he won at Liverpool?
You'll have to forgive me.
At Chelsea?
Were they through the academy as it is now, or were they before that? Because Kasper Schmeichel was a couple of years ago now, wasn't he?
Before it.
Was Kasper Schmeichel just before? Because I know he broke in.
Yeah.
I know he broke in with Sven. Sort of half-heartedly with Sven. He was dropped by Sven, wasn't he?
I think the foundations of the academy has been put in place is to make money for covering the financial fair play aspect and covering the aspect of listen. What City will do is we'll buy as much of the best talent in the world as we can, which we are doing. Is there any diamonds in the rough out there that we can turn into diamond rings? Get them through to our squad, brilliant. If not, actually, it's doing its job. It's just turning over a nice steady profit. And I mean, I've got some academy sales. Let me tell you the academy sales in the last 4 years, okay, and how much they've gone for. And you tell me whether they should be in the squad now, okay? Angus Good, 13.5 million, not good enough to be in our squad. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Jason Denayer, nearly 12 million quid. Will these be in
I'd
our
have
squad?
him.
Ronnie Lopez, 9 million quid.
He was good enough.
Maffeo, 8 million. Sancho, the big one, 8 million. Angelino, still in our books, I believe. Or we can buy him back. 5 million we sold him for, got money for him. Oliver Nemechim, 4.5 million. Seko Fofana, 3.8 million. Kellen Rekic, 3.5 million. Tyrese Campbell, 1.7. And Rodney Congolo for 750 grand. So basically, we've made X amount of quid there. What's that? Nearly 70 million quid in the last 4 years from our academy. Plus, obviously, there's undisclosed fees all over the place, isn't there? I think it's there to just make money. I think it's there to underpin the business that is City. It's not there to bring through players. I think it's there to underpin the financials behind the business plan, which is sad in a little. If anything else comes through, if any of the Sanchos come through, the better.
Tom, did you see the work, with all the figures that I did since the takeover on the transfers?
I'm not, pal, no, sorry.
All right, off the top, I can't remember the exact amount, but since the takeover, from youth signings, so players that joined the club before they were 21, we've made £90 million since the takeover.
What, from the academy?
Just from any player that we've signed under 21 years old since the takeover, which to me, if you're under 21, you don't have to be registered with the Premier League team, so to me, you class as one of the academy, if you like, because you can play for the under 21s, whatever. But in the same amount of time, we have lost nearly something like £500 million in general transfers altogether. And that's my problem. It's great. Yeah, we've made £90 million on youth players. On effectively unproven talent. That's really good. That's more than other teams. But we're then losing 5 times that amount on first team players.
I get that completely. 100% get that. But if we were to say, okay, well, we don't want to lose £500 million in these transfer fees on a gamble, we wouldn't be in a position where we are at the moment of winning trophies. We would still be in this position of mid to 6th place because the players we're trying to bring through aren't of the quality as the Chelseas, the Uniteds, the Arsenals, the Liverpools at the moment, even the Leicesters. We'd be relying on the players that are coming through the ranks.
Because I think the players that we've lost the most amount of money on, like in first team terms, they've only ever really joined the club as, I don't want to say understudy as such, but they've been brought in to challenge an already first team player. Mangala wasn't brought in to be side by side with company. We had Julian Lescott and Otamendi, I think, at the it was like he was brought in there as a possible one for the future because he was only like early 20s. It was the same with Joe. Joe wasn't brought in to take over from Tevez or Robinho. He was brought in. Well, he's 20 years old. He could be another one for the future it just doesn't work. Which, like I said,
Jim, where do you sit on this as an ex-pro and a City fan? More importantly. Do you see? Would you prefer City to be bringing through more and trialing more youth and more?
I mean, listen, for me, that's the only way I got into the side, along with a load of other lads. But your sentence right at the beginning when you said, "I'd like to win 4 trophies next season," and just with that alone, you're not going to try kids. You're going to buy players that are already established to try and go for 4 trophies. The talent that is in the academy at the moment, if that was in my time, they'd be playing. They'd be playing all day long. Phil Foden would be playing ages ago, along with some of the others that are there right now. But when you're not sure if they're going to step that mark and you're after 4 trophies, you're going to go. You're going to buy. You're going to buy, and unfortunately, with success comes the need for more success, and the kids aren't going to have, in my opinion, aren't going to get the breakthrough that they should. However, if you're going to make 90-odd million from kids that haven't really done much, then that's fantastic. You know, you wouldn't have had that in my day. And so if they're churning out a little bit of money at the same time, then fair dues. But I wouldn't say it's the place to go for if you're a youngster to come and play in the first team. I don't think you're going to get that many opportunities.
Can I ask you, Jim? Sorry, Tom. Can I ask Jim? You said your lad's signed for Blackpool at the minute.
Yes.
He's on the books there. If tomorrow morning you got a phone call from City saying, "Look, we want to talk with you about getting your lad on our books," would you have your son playing there? Because
yeah, you see, I've had this question before, and it's a really tricky one because I'm a City fan. You know, I'd be like, "Oh man, don't do this," because I know he's got a better chance. I know if you have half a decent season at Blackpool, you could be in the first team quite quickly. At City, you could have a good season. What they might do is you might get more money. So maybe by the age of 20, 21, you slip out of the game, you'd have more money in the bank, let's say, than if you didn't make it at Blackpool. However, you can go to Blackpool, play in the first team, and move on quite quickly and be a name in the game quite quickly. And that would be a very difficult question, and cross that bridge if it came. But I would say right now, it's where he's at. If he shines where he's at, then that's a good thing. To try and shine at Manchester City at the moment, you have to be very, very, very good, consistently good to even get close to being anywhere in the first team squad.
Yeah, I must admit, if it was me, I think I've always been of the opinion, if you're good enough, especially with the way Man City do it at the minute, if you're good enough, you'll make it at Blackpool, and then someone will come knocking. I mean, you only have to look at Jamie Vardy for evidence of that. And I know what you're saying about, players, they might drop out the game. You could get injured and never play again. You'll make more money at the City, but money doesn't buy you happiness. I've always said money can't buy happiness. It can buy a jet ski, and you're never unhappy on a jet ski. But you can get them for $2,000. So as long as you've got that in your back pocket when you finish,
where are you buying a jet ski for $2,000 from?
Facebook, mate, marketplace on Facebook.
So, boys, I think there's arguments on both sides. I think listening to you guys talk here, and I think if you're a parent going to Manchester City, yes, your kid could come out with quite a bit of cash at the end of it. There's also a chance that once you leave Manchester City, you could possibly drop down and hopefully play. However, the style of play at the likes of Manchester City and the top clubs compared to the likes of League 1 and 2, still for me is there's a big gap, and that nice passing, flowing movement is not quite the same. It's a much rougher and harder league to play in League 1 and 2, and so they might not make me great. But as a parent, they could have a bit more cash in the bank, let's say, going to one of the top sides and be looked after, travel the world, even have good schooling. But the raw talent, the ones who want to play, will go anywhere just to play football and play in the first team. So there's arguments on both sides. But the amount of money that they're putting into it, time will tell in another 10, 15 years as to whether it has, whether it's brought them what they started out.
I firmly believe that the last 10, maybe the last 5 years is probably a better analogy, because we seem to be evolving the academy as time goes on. I think we'll see more prospects coming out in the next 5 years than we have done the last 10 years. I think the next 5 years we'll start seeing more and more. But we look at like Eric Garcia. Granted, we kind of bought him, so I don't really class him as homegrown for obvious reasons. But if he's good enough, he'll step straight in. And if any of the players are good enough and they fancy the chances, then come to City. But I kind of like Jim. I kind of like what you've done there with your lad going to Blackpool. He's gone to a local club. He's gone to a proper footballing club, and he will get seen if he's good enough. He'll come through the ranks, and hopefully he's gonna have a good career behind him. Whereas he can get lost a bit at City, I feel.
Yes, you can do. But listen, it is a fantastic club. I think as a parent to say my son's at Man City or Man United or Chelsea, it's a biggie, you know. It's a
Yeah,
biggie, and it
but
probably
Manchester's not got a tower, Jim. So, you know,
it raises an eyebrow more.
where do you
And
want to go?
listen, and I don't know why. If you said to someone I've signed for Man City, they go, "Oh, you signed for Man City." If you say I've signed for Blackpool, it's not quite the same ring about it, or any of the other local. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. Man City is like, oh, hello, what's going on here? And that's just what people or the parents see, and it's like, oh, it's a big club, must be good. This lad must be good, and I suppose the as a parent to have that kind of my son's at City, it's a great thing to talk about and to gloat to other neighbours, I suppose. But it's not always the best thing. And like I said, time will tell. It's a really, really fine line with that. A really, really fine line. It's a great argument that you've come up with. Really, really good argument.
What I really want to know is, Dan, where do you sit on this, pal? Because you've heard both arguments here, and to be honest, I am still either way. I'm just pro business because I know we're trying to circumnavigate financial fair play with you. So we need that to be able to be where we want to be next season, the season after that. Of course, I want to see more Phil Fodens coming through. Of course I do, because I love a Manchester lad playing for City. That's brilliant.
Mm.
So I'm kind of very much on the fence, leaning towards the business side.
I have to agree with that. I'm still, in essence, on the bench. On the fence, even on the bench. I wish I was on the bench. Part of me thinks that the business is working. If you take first teamers out the equation, the youth system is working. We're signing players for very small amounts. I wish I had these small amounts, but very small amounts in terms of football terms, and then later on selling them on. But just to go back to a point that all three of you, in essence, made, is like when Chris was on about the players that haven't made it through the ranks that could have, such as Kieran Trippier and Ben Mee, for example, when this first started. It's exactly what Tom and Jim were saying. You want them trophies. Those players aren't going to get them. Ben Mee is a good player. It took him a while to develop into Burnley's arguably first choice centre-back. Kieran Trippier, yes, he got to the Champions League final. He also, no disrespect to Burnley, it took him a while to get going, and then he was picked up by a big club. So at that time, you had the likes of Zabaleta, Mika Richards. Eventually, we had Bakary Sagna, which, is a good right back. So those players were never going to go for it, especially when we're a club that we'd obviously won our first trophy in 2012 and a title in 2012. And then we were wanting to build a dynasty. We wanted to build this momentum, get trophies. These players were ever going to get into the club. And it is a once-in-a-generation type thing where you get the Phil Fodens coming through the ranks. And I don't think it is just because he's a Manchester lad. I think it's just because he's that very rare talent that you have to argue, you can't really argue, that every football club in the world would want. He's a talent that everybody can see the potential in, no matter where he plays. And I think it's just this tippy-toe start for the academy. And I do agree with what Tom says. I think a lot more will come in the next 5 years because they're starting to get that rhythm and game time. The only problem I have, major problem with our academy structure, is the loaning system. Take Patrick Roberts, for example. When we signed him from Fulham, he had the world at his feet, that lad. He'd come from Fulham showing his talents. He was brilliant in the attack. He was fast. He was pacey. He could do anything he wanted. Signed for City. I think all of us were excited to see what he was made. And I think all of us thought he may stay for the season and get a bit of game time. He's loaned out to that many clubs now. I think he's demolished his career, whether that's City's fault or whether that's his fault. But I think they should have a structure in place where you play for a certain club for a number of years rather than just chopping and changing from loan systems and then seeing where you're going, because he's never going to make his name in a top team. And I feel personally, whether it's a fact or not, or it's just opinion, I think that City destroyed his career. Whether he still makes a name for himself is yet to be seen. But if you're not giving him that chance to make a name at a club, if he'd stayed for Celtic for another season, I know he stayed at Celtic for 2 seasons. If he'd stayed at Celtic for another season, I think he would have kicked on. And I think he could have easily come back to City and challenged the likes of Mahrez, because let's not forget Patrick Roberts is a right winger. He could have challenged the likes of Mahrez who came into the club. Then we might not have had to sign Mahrez. But I think that's the problem. But the same could be said about Angelino. I still think...
I get your point. Patrick Roberts is nowhere near the quality of Mahrez. Patrick Roberts would get nowhere near the City team.
But he could have been. That's the problem.
If he could have been, he would have been. He went to Celtic. And I know that sounds dreadful. I've got a lot of love for Celtic, but they're nowhere near City's calibre.
Well, look at Jack Harrison. Jack Harrison's done brilliantly at Leeds for the last couple of seasons. We've just got rid of one left winger. Is Jack Harrison going to get his chance next season? No, because he's already agreed now he's going back to Leeds next season. So he's going to be playing Premier League football, but it's not going to be for City.
And that's probably the best thing for him, isn't it? It's definitely the best thing for him.
Yeah. You know how I feel about Harrison as well. I'd have him in my City team any day of the week. I think
it's the best thing for him. It's going to work for him, but is this going to be another player that we're going to miss out on? You know, are we being linked with this Ferran Torres or whatever? You know, from we're going to pay a fortune for. 30-odd million. He might make it. He might be brilliant. He might not. Why should we bother spending £30 million on a player we've got to take a risk on when we've already got a player who's just got promoted as champions of the Championship? And the Championship for me is the hardest league in the world.
This is the Daniel James analogy. This is the Daniel James and Swansea analogy, isn't it? Listen, he's kind of gone to United, kicked on, and he's going great guns. But there's obviously analytics in the background. There's like your football manager database in the background of how quality a player is and how good they expect it to be, etc. So there's people that are paid to kind of work this out. So I'm sure they would have done to step up. No, right. Well, who are the next options? This is a cracking debate. Do you know what, lads? This is supposed to be 25, 30 minutes. It's nearly an hour.
My wife's going to kill me.
So what we'll say is I'm right, you're wrong, Chris, and we'll leave it as that. How does that sound?
Oh, story of
and
my
no
life.
more chicken
analogies.
analogies.
I'll unmute Chris. Hang on. Listen, lads, thank you very much. This is brilliant. I don't think we're ever going to get an answer to this, because there's always going to be opinion about this. And this is going to be an argument that there's just no answer to. Oh, hang on a minute. Here we go.
Now it's going to start.
Here we go. Jim, if you need to go, mate, this guy talks for ages, so
I might have to go, boys. I might have to go.
Yeah.
Listen, we'll take this on another time.
Yeah, we'll speak to you soon, Jim.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim.
Great conversation. But guys, enjoy. Carry on the conversation.
Cheers,
Take care, mate.
Take care,
See you
Jim.
later.
Cheers, boys. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Dave, we were literally on the vinegar strokes of finishing up then, pal.
Face.
I mistimed that because I literally just had a question for Jim.
Oh, tell you what, send me the message. In fact, message him on Twitter. He'll get back to you.
So here was my question for Jim, and we didn't kind of get round to it, but please ask him this. So one thing that we've discussed a lot of times is about would we have the Phil Foden that we have now? I've just been hearing you guys talking about Patrick Roberts, right? He was signed as a potential world beater as a 17-year-old from Fulham, right? He was going to be the next big thing. He never got into the first team at City. He was immediately brought in and sent out on loan. My question to Jim would be, as a professional, what does he think if we'd have done the same with Foden? Hey, we've got this young lad coming through from Stockport, big City fan, bags of potential. let's get him out on loan to a League One, League Two club, or up to Celtic or whatever it is. So have we done the better thing by Foden by keeping him at Manchester City, training with David Silva, with Aguero, with, you know, whoever else, all these world-class players? Or would it have been better for Foden, or have we got a better player by Foden staying with us? Or would we have still had the same player if we'd sent him out on loan for the last 2 or 3 years? So Dan, you're shaking your head there. And that's really mine and Chris's point, that we bring these players in, and then rather than giving them that opportunity, at least for 1 year in the academy, play your academy games, play some first team in training. I know it's not a real game, but play first team training with these absolutely world-class players. Is that not of more benefit to these players, the Patrick Roberts, the Guedettis, etc., than it is than sending out on loan where they're not surrounded by some of the best players in the world? And that's what I'd like Jim's opinion on. That, you know, he was a midfielder as well, right? Does he feel that his game would have suffered if he'd have just been sent out on loan straight away, or was he better served staying at Main Road and training at Platt Lane with, you know, around that time, the Kevin Horlocks, you know, etc., who were, you know, were good players? And that's the big question to ask. All me and Chris have been saying all along is, if we're going to buy Jan Couto for 7 million, another 7 million in add-ons, so 14 million essentially, is he best served buggering off for the next 2 years to Celtic or to the Dutch league, or is he best served staying in the academy like Foden and training with Walker and training with Cancelo and getting that experience that way? And that's it for me at the end of the day. I just want these players who we're bringing in for 2-3 million, like Garcia, to be given that opportunity at Manchester City in the academy, rather than being said, okay, we've got your signature now, you're off to Celtic, you're off to Scotland, you're off to Holland for the next 2 years. That's all.
I have to say now. Sorry, Chris.
Go on. I was going to say, to me, it's the famous analogy, in it. You can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. But you can only do that if you've got the sparkle around you. If you go to if there's no glitter there, you're not going to shine, are you?
Chris, I'm going to make millions off your book. I don't care if I need your signature and approval. I'm going to make millions. No, what I was going to say, Tom, you were saying that you're on the fence, and I agree with you. I have to say, Dave's pushed me onto their side. I never really put Foden into the picture of that, because I have to 100% agree. I don't think Foden would have a look in if he got loaned out. I don't think he would have had a chance. And to go back to what I was saying about Patrick Roberts, if you had Patrick Roberts with the likes of Raheem Sterling and whoever the Sane at the time, you know, and I'd throw Nolito in there. He was a big baby, but he was a good player, a good winger.
Let me ask you one question. Who's England's greatest right winger in recent years?
David Beckham.
Right. Where did he go out on loan?
He went to Preston for 1 month.
He did. He went on loan
for a month.
For a month.
We send ours out for like 2, 3, 4 seasons.
Are you telling me if Phil Foden would have gone elsewhere, say for example, a Patrick Roberts analogy, if Phil Foden had gone to Celtic, did 15 assists and scored 10 goals, City wouldn't bring him back and play him?
Oh no, City would.
Of course they would. Any great player would rise to the top, but Pep didn't want him to go on loan because he knew he'd be starting in the first team.
But the problem with Patrick Roberts, when he did that, he went to Celtic. Obviously, Celtic are nowhere near the calibre of City.
Correct.
You give me, probably on his form, Scott Sinclair is probably the best winger Celtic had at the same time. That's not Sane, that's not Sterling, that's not Nolito, that's not Mahrez of today.
He's another
Patrick Roberts.
Rid of.
Yeah, Patrick Roberts. Well, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
It's like 2 or 3 points here, all intermingled with one.
Yeah, guys, I am sorry. I am really
So-
gonna have to bail because it's 20.
No worries,
to 10.
mate. Yeah, no worries.
I'm
Started
full
the
of-
argument and then sodding off.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Tom, let me.
because I've got another argument in a minute.
See you, mate, Chris.
Take
I'll
care,
ask you-
guys.
pal.
Thanks very much. See you
Take
later.
care, mate.
I'll ask you a question back, Tom, and I might be wrong on this.
Sure, yeah.
So let's use Patrick Roberts as an example because I think it's the perfect example of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So we signed him, massive potential. I believe he was immediately sent out on loan. I don't think he spent any time at Manchester City. The only time Patrick Roberts has had the opportunity to shine at Manchester City is pre-season. I think he's had 2 or 3 pre-seasons with him where he's had, a game against the MLS All-Stars or something like that, and then immediately he's gone out on loan again.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying. He's not even had the opportunity like Foden has had to, well, let's bring him in and let's get a season under his belt at the Manchester City Academy. Let's have him training with the first team, see what he can do. And let's take it from there. And if then he's, you know what, I think it would be best if we sent him out on loan for a year, like toughen him up. Let's get him to Celtic. Let's get him to Girona or wherever. I totally understand that. My beef is that a lot of the time we're not even giving these players that opportunity for a year to just spend in the academy, spend working with De Bruyne, Aguero, Silva, and picking up these little tips and tricks. Because you're not telling me if we sent Foden off to Celtic, he'd have learned anything from any of the players there. No disrespect to Celtic.
I get where you're going with that. Just before I forget this response. If we did that with all the players, we'd have to be spending that much money on wages, etc. That's one side of it. Another side of it, with the academy would be full every week of players going through that. If we signed Joe Bloggs, who's a left winger, and we thought, right, okay, is he going to be the future left winger for City? Yes, potentially. Is he going to be the future left winger for City next season? Definitely. He'll stay in the academy. If we've got 2 or 3 other players ahead of him in our first team already that are going on long-term contracts, it'll be pointless to keep him playing alongside the team. He would need that match experience going out. So I'd prefer him to go out on loan for a couple of years, and then if 1 or 2 players take a chance of coming out. The problem is we don't know the finer details of the business plan with City and how it works.
We don't.
From what I see and from everything I see, we buy players to sell them on, to make a profit. We do it really well, and if we get the odd diamond in the rough, then that's an absolute bonus.
The only thing, to go back to that Patrick Roberts one, Tom, he was instrumental in that season before we signed him Fulham. He, in my eyes, already proved what he was capable of and the potential. The lads in the academy is different. We signed Patrick Roberts as a 17-year-old who'd already had a full season in the first team of a club. And we signed him based on that. He should have been given that. The youth academy aside, I suppose you could argue Patrick Roberts shouldn't really be in this argument because he wasn't, in essence, a youth academy product. But it's that sort of point that I'm trying to say. We signed him because of how good he was for his team previous.
What position is he? Forgive me.
Right winger.
Right, okay. So a right winger at that time in City's squad, we had... Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, let me just arrange this. Attacking midfielders in City squad at that time. So he's played 19 games for Fulham, no goals, don't know how many assists, forgive me. We had Nasri, De Bruyne, Silva, Patrick Roberts was still there, obviously. Raheem Sterling and Jesus Navas. Patrick Roberts not as good as Navas, wasn't as good as Sterling, wasn't as good as De Bruyne, wasn't as good as Nasri, wasn't as good as David Silva. There you go, straight away. There's no point keeping him. Go out on loan. If we've signed Patrick Roberts and there's 5 players that can play in that position, that best of him, he hasn't got a chance.
In my eyes, there's only 2 out of those that you mentioned that would play right wing, and that's Sterling and Navas.
Yeah, but I would still play any of those 5 over him in that position.
But that's the point. How would we know that Roberts would be better than him if he wasn't given a chance?
He's never going to get a chance if he wants to win the league.
Well, no, but that's my argument.
It's just not good enough.
No,
it's just not good enough.
But I suppose you could argue that's the flawed point of any team's youth academy, innit? You've got to, if you're going to be challenging for the trophies, you don't have the time to. But you cancel out that argument with the likes of Sancho.
I mean, he had a good England under 16, 17, 18, 19. He's probably been in the England setup. He's obviously done really well there. He's scored 15 goals for Celtic in 55 appearances. Went to Girona on loan, 15 appearances, 0 goals. Norwich on loan.
He was poor in Spain.
Yeah, he's obviously. I understand why you use him as an example, but if they're not as good as the players we've already got, they've not got a chance. I feel a bit sorry for Patrick Roberts.
I do too. Well, and that's what Dan's saying. So
23, he's not really got a home, has he?
No.
So here's another way of looking at it, Tom. And I'm not saying your way's right or my way's right or anything, but we bring in Patrick Roberts. We keep him at City for a season, playing games in the youth academy, training with the first team, analysing him. You know, they spent $7 million or whatever on him for a reason. They saw the potential in him. Well, why don't we look at this the other way then? We keep him for 12 months and then we realise, bloody hell, he's actually better than Navas, because let's be totally honest, Navas was a pretty bang average player for us.
His crossing was fantastic though.
And why couldn't we have brought Patrick Roberts in, having assessed him over 12 months, and then said to Jesus Navas, you know what?
Yeah.
You're not quite right for City. Because at that stage, we would have actually been able to put him on the market and sold him for a lot more money than we actually got from him.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. It disappoints me that we don't give players a chance as much as we should do.
Yeah.
I say that and I'll draw a big fat line underneath it and say I still want to win the Premier League. I would rather play it's so hard that. But that's football, isn't it, I suppose?
It's difficult. I think I want to win these things as well, and I think all me and Chris have really been trying to say is that all this expense of bringing in these young lads, the Patrick Robertses, the Yankutos, the Garcias, we've got Harwood Bellis, and Doyle coming through now. There's a ton of them. Totally understand, Premier League, and we want to win that trophy, Champions League. But could we give a little bit more opportunity to these young lads who are coming through? Because I'm stunned sometimes when I look at that team sheet, when we're playing Burton Albion or Oxford or whatever, and you've got £800 million worth of talent, playing the game. It stuns me when, I just go back to, more olden days of, well, that was the those cup competitions for the bigger teams were that opportunity to blood some of that youth. That's where, I'll talk about the other side of Manchester. That's where these young lads, I think Paul Scholes' first game for United was in the League Cup against Port Vale. I think he scored 5 goals or something like that in his debut for United or something like that. And that's all I'm saying. That if we've got Yankuto in now, I'm not saying he should immediately take over Walker or Cancelo's position, but can we keep him for a year, training with the first team, getting that experience, and throwing him in to those games against the Burton Albions, the Oxfords, the Cambridges, etc. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's such a tough argument because I don't think we'll ever have a right answer.
No. It's one of them where, exactly, no right, no wrong. It's opinion based, but the facts speak for themselves.
I'd love to see more youth players come through. I love seeing a Manchester lad or wherever they're coming from, coming through, fighting for the place, earning the crust, making the odd mistake, but the fans getting behind him still because they know he's a young lad and he's getting used to it. I love that.
Yeah.
But we don't see.
How excited were us three and the rest of the MIB team? We had that game earlier this season. I think it was in the League Cup where
Howard Bellis.
Foden, Bellis,
Yeah.
and Doyle were all playing, and we
Brilliant.
were all so excited that look at Bellis and Doyle going up to Phil Foden, kind of asking for advice, and you know he was the leader of these younger lads, and we were so excited by seeing that, and I want that for myself, and I want that for all City fans to really kind of push these lads and be excited about it.
I completely agree. Right, we're going to leave it there because we've done an hour and 20 minutes. I'm supposed to be on for half an hour with this. My missus is going to give me some rice stick when I go inside. Bloody hell. Right. Love you and leave you, lads. Thanks for coming on, Dave. It's good to see you, pal.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, you're welcome.
Cheers, Dan. See you soon, guys.
Take care,
Thanks for
boys.
watching, everyone. See you soon.
All the best.